Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order. We are at the City Center of Olivet in the council chambers on August 10th, 2022. It looks like 202 on the agenda at 7 p.m. Madam Clerk, if you could do a roll call.
Councilmember Carl.
Here.
Councilmember Waldman.
Here.
Councilmember Springer. Here. Chairman Weil.
Here,
Mayor Clark.
excused with absence. Next item, please.
Item number 2 is communications. We have 2 written communications thank you notes. If you'd like me to read them, one's for the police department, one's for the parks.
That'd be lovely. Thank you.
Okay. This is to the police department. It is of comfort. I was able to call the non-emergency number and have you respond so quickly. My neighbor Shirley Shen, number 53 Queensbrook, has enough to work through with cancer in our language without her garage door closing too quickly. Per usual, she came to us for help, but it was more than we could handle. Your patience and kindness is greatly appreciated. If there is anything we might do in return, please let us know. Both my husband and I are grateful to know our Olivet community allows for this simple act. Please take care. Always, Katie Jenke, number 51 Queensbrook. And this was for Sergeant Tim Lothan, who the woman had locked herself out, the garage door closed and she couldn't get in the house, and he got in the house for her.
Very nice. Thank you.
And then the other
second
one, we have one for parks. This is just a note to say how much our family and 2 dogs enjoy Stacy Park. We live in Ladue, so we must travel to find good dog walking areas. We walk at 5 area parks and Stacy's at the top of the list. Here's why. Kept up well without feeling fussy. Diversity of landscape. The grand open space allows for community activities, but I especially enjoy the new forest walk, and my favorite area is around the pond. It was fascinating to see how the burn enhanced the grow of native plants. The prairie reconstruction is a wonderful addition. There's one more area of diversity that makes it my favorite, the people. So many ages, cultures, and races, and everyone is friendly and wears a smile. So kudos to all the staff and residents who support such a wonderful community resource. Shalom, Sherry Klein.
Shalom. Very nice. And they don't even live in our community and they sent it. That makes it even nicer.
Maybe they should live in our community.
That makes it even nicer
There you
to
go.
take the time to do that. City manager,
City managers report and staff report.
Good evening. Let me share my screen. That. Go. Okay. Oh, we have a couple of updates today. Actually, sorry, I got this. The slide is a little cuckoo. This first one is we have a delay in the delivery of the fire engine, new fire engine. It's looking like due to supply chain issues, et cetera, it's probably going to be December, maybe even January before it gets in. So we are talking with Rosenbauer about that, but I don't know if there's going to be too much we're going to be able to do about it. They have just had a tough time getting some of the parts that they need, getting them in. The council probably saw an email regarding what they call the STL pipeline, and this is actually a national natural gas pipeline. And what's happening with that? Spire is an affiliate of Spire. Went through the process in 2018 to get permitting and permission to create the 65-mile new pipeline, and it's called the STL pipeline. That went to court. There it was a couple of entities did not think that the federal energy, I can't think of the name, Federal Energy Commission, the FERC gave it the appropriate consideration. And because one of the things when there's a pipeline, there needs to be a need they have to establish a need that it's a new one is necessary. We went to court, and I think people were all pretty surprised that it was that they actually won. And what happened now is that the pipeline, the STL pipeline isn't certified, doesn't have a permit to operate. The concern now is that Spire obviously has, in 2018, they got the permit, they built it in 2019, and they're using it. And in fact, they've been using it now for over a year or two. And so they are going forward to request an emergency certification. And the Municipal League of Metro St. Louis is supporting this temporary emergency certificate. And part of the reason is that if we have, the concern is that if there'd be another bad winter or very, very cold patch, Spire wouldn't have all of the supply that they would need. So that's what is going on. The Municipal League of Metro St. Louis did ask if mayors would sign on to this. And in email communications with the mayor pro tem and with the mayor, he did decide to put his name to the letter for the temporary emergency certificate. So I just want to let folks know that that's kind of where we're at on that. Another item I have up here is the American Rescue Plan Act, or the ARPA. I want to let folks know, I apologize, I was just going to talk about it. I didn't really was going to have a slide for it, but now it's kind of better if I have a slide. The state of Missouri did now apply for the funding and actually has received, our understanding is that they've received the funding or will be receiving the funding shortly. The city has completed all of the paperwork necessary for us to receive the 50%, with the exception, we have one document that's at the bank right now because they need the information for the deposit of the funding. And so with that, we're prepared to receive the funding. We have been working, staff, I've been working with Darren Mann. He's been looking at revenue losses, which is one of the things that the monies, the federal funds can be used on. And he has, so we've got calculations on that. Revenue loss funds have a broader array of things that they can be used on. And then we also do have some of the other allowances. If you'll recall, it's about $1.4 million. I am going to, we've not really started doing a lot of discussion on this because we've continued to, the regulations have continued to trickle out. And we didn't want to get too far down. I think at one point in time, there were cities that were looking at new initiatives and programs, and they have really suggested that, unless you're really able to start a new initiative, to really look at existing things, even if that's, meaning that you're going to partner with the county on something. So I anticipate in September, we'll start these discussions and talk. Really, the first part of the discussion will be talking about a plan of how we move forward to look at the funding. You'll recall there's 4 years to spend this money. So I really want to get it right, because they won't look at what you're going to be using it for and tell you, yeah, that'll work. Yeah, that won't work. What will happen is you'll get an audit and you'll find out, oh, that doesn't work. That doesn't qualify. And then you have to pay back the money. And so we want to get it right. So with that, that's kind of where we are with that funding. Sure.
I really wasn't sure what I heard with regard to time frame. Did you say we have a few years to spend this money, or did I hear you say 4 years to spend this money?
I think it's 4 years to spend the money, but the time has already started.
Yeah,
So I
okay.
think it's December 31st of 2024 is my recollection. Because they're looking back at revenue from 2020. Yeah, yeah. Community Center in Warson Park, we have again advertised for a general contractor for the construction of the new community center and the Centennial Greenway that is within Warson Park. Bids are due August 19th. And so it's kind of exciting. We did have a good turnout for the pre-bid opening. So that's when the contractors come, they can ask any questions, they can pick up the packets, that type of thing. We had, it looks like we had about 8 firms maybe that have pulled. So that's great. That doesn't always mean they're going to apply. That just means they're grabbing it. So that's good. We're still, discussing some of those other specialty items like the AV, the indoor playground, the exercise equipment, security system. So we're still kind of finalizing some of those things. And as far as actually the parks, we are moving on the other 4 parks. We're moving from schematic design and we're entering design development phase. We anticipate we will be back to the council on that in September. We'll actually be back before the council earlier, either August 31st or that first meeting of September to talk about the general contractor for the Warson Park, but we'll be back then after that to talk specifically about parks. As the council is aware, you accepted the Transportation Alternative Program grant. That was $1 million grant at your July 27th meeting. Where we are in that, the engineering is really complete with that project for that. That's the section of the Centennial Greenway within Indian Meadows. They're undergoing now, there's a number, when the engineering went into MoDOT for review, it came back with a number of things that we need to have a review on. So we're in the process now of doing the NEPA review, which is the environmental review of the area. We don't anticipate any issues on that, but it is it looks at a lot of different things. There are a lot of things it's looking at, your wetlands and other environmental issues. Following this and the MoDOT approval of the preliminary engineering or the construction engineering, we will then begin the process of acquiring the temporary construction easements from the residents that live along that section of the trail. So again, this grant is similar to an STP grant from MoDOT. And so you don't start that process until you've gotten the authorization from MoDOT to begin that process. I anticipate that happening later in the next couple of months. Because this started out as a Great Rivers Greenway project, and then we took it on with the grant, they've already had a number of discussions with the residents. They've done the preliminary work on that temporary construction easements and have been talking with the residents there. Well, the city will continue to use the real estate professional that Great Rivers Greenway started with, so that we're not changing who the residents are talking to. Turkey Trot, it's live, baby. You can register. And so I pulled this actually from the registration page. You can go to olivetmo.com. There is the Olivet Turkey Trots on the front page there, and you can click on the turkey and it'll take you to the back to our race page, or you can go to registration. And I printed this up. We've got a few different events. We have the actual real life in-person Thanksgiving Day 5K. We have a real life real live in-person kids run on Thanksgiving morning. And then we have virtual events. We have a virtual 5K, a virtual 10K, a half marathon, the cycling at 20 miles and the cycling at 30 miles. You can sign up for one and all. Probably won't sign up for all, but if you want to, sure. And kind of really looking forward to it. I think we've got some, it's going to be a neat event, and we're pretty excited about all the different options that we have. And when I say excited, I mean nervous. So so looking forward to that. Upcoming events, I was gonna bring these all in. We have Zoning Board of Adjustment this Thursday at 7 p.m. We have got a new name, Annual Olivet Clean Out. We used to call it the e-waste prescription take back and document shredding event. I don't know, Kiana didn't like that, and that is why we have a communications manager. Now we have the Olivet Clean Out. We're trying something new this year, trying a Thursday from 4 to 7 p.m. We typically have done it on Saturdays. We've always had a couple of number of residents who have complained about it being on a Saturday. It's usually a Saturday morning. And so we thought, well, let's try a Thursday. Let's try a Thursday, 4 to 7. It's at the Community Center, which is on Grandview. The next regular Planning and Community Design Commission is August 19th at 7 p.m. City Council regular meeting is August 24th at 7 p.m. Pension Board has a special meeting on August 26th at 5 p.m. The City Council, and I have this as a work session / special meeting. It might become a special meeting on August 31st if we can actually, if we're ready to recommend to the council a general contractor. Otherwise, we'll just do, as you recall, that September 1st work session meeting in September is a Jewish holiday, so we've moved it to the 31st.
Barb?
Yes,
Could we also, depending on what happens at the special meeting of the pension board, could we reserve that too for Brian?
yes. Actually, I always said that, or didn't I? That's a good reminder. Planning and Community Design Commission then is September 2nd, and the Party in the Park, God willing, September 10th from 6 to 9 p.m. at Stacy Park. Happy to answer any questions that you folks might have.
I would just like to make a comment. I'm very glad to see that this Olivet clean out has moved over to a different area of town. We held it here many, many times on Saturdays, and it really ended up being a traffic cluster. So I think a lot of the things that you've done for this are a good change. So thank you and the staff.
Ms. Sondag, I also want to ask, on that list, there was not a Parks meeting in August. Is there not going to be a Parks meeting in August?
And I apologize for that. It wasn't on the calendar. And so I did actually email Beverly and asked if there was a Parks meeting. It just wasn't on our calendar, but then I failed.
Will that be Wednesday, August 18th?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, thank you. Great. Next item.
Item number 4, City Council reports.
Yeah, you can start now.
Council member Springer,
I attended a pension board meeting on.
you're not on.
I attended the pension board meeting on August the 5th or 4th or whenever it was. You know, we meet quarterly, so this was our quarterly update. Pension is doing really, really well. We have reached the high water mark. The pension's never been this high. It is $25,474,110.97, which is great. The pension board did authorize a rebalance so that we could come into compliance with the investment policy. As of the date of the meeting, there were 65% equity, 25% total fixed, and about 9.2% real estate. And the target mix is 60-30-10. So we rebalanced money, took some out of equity, put it into fixed income. In addition, as Ms. Sondag said, the commission will hold a special meeting on August the 26th to discuss private placement and whether to forward a request to the city council to amend the investment policy to include private placement. Right now, the investment policy does not allow for private placement. So if the commission votes to forward the recommendation to the city council, then the city council can expect to have Brian Gotting attend a workshop to explain what private placement is. And he is going to talk to us about a specific private placement investment that he would like the commission to make, and that will then need to alter our investment policy so that it can allow for that sort of investment to be made. So it'll be very interesting and should be very informative.
Great.
And that's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Carl,
I have nothing to report.
Councilmember Waldman,
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. I attended the PCDC meeting last week. And in summary, there was an approval of a fence regulation for 9431 Bonham Woods Drive. And the other topic that was on the calendar for that meeting was lot number 4 of Olive Crossing, a 5-story, 188-unit multifamily residential apartment building with attached garage structure. Was approved was a community design review for lot number 4 of the MU Gateway District, finding the application in compliance with the approved master plan, development plan. Proposed retaining wall along the south property line was determined to impose no obvious detriment to the existing trees in the common ground. Proposed noise mitigation efforts appear adequate. Proposed landscape shows no obvious hardship, so long as the property is maintained consistently and access to the common ground will not be impeded. Exterior finish of the parking garage sample was approved, and the commission previously requested architectural screening elements, balconies, and those were approved as proposed. And that is the exciting news that occurred at the Planning Community Design Commission last time. Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
thank you. Next item, please.
Next item is hearing from citizens.
Is there anyone that would like to make a comment tonight? Okay, we'll move right along.
Item number 6 is resolution number
isn't.
2021-209, a resolution authorizing the offering for sale of general obligation refunding bonds.
Okay,
I'm gonna bring that up for the folks at home. I'm going to ask Joy Howard with WM Financial Advisors to come on up. The council knows Joy. We've worked with her on our bond issues in the past, and Joy has, because she's kind of always taken care of us, has brought it to our attention that this might be a good time to essentially refund the 2014 general obligation bond. And Joy, if you want to talk a little bit about that. And okay, can you turn the mic on too? Sorry, I should have had that on for you.
Am I on? So I did, since I did an entire presentation at the work session, I'm just going to do a quick recap tonight. Basically, under Internal Revenue Code rules, and I guess you could say under congressional rules as well, you can't do a refunding any sooner than 90 days before the call date. Your issue is callable on March 1st, 2022, and it takes about 3 months, a little bit longer. I was looking at the calendar today, maybe a little bit longer because we're going to be running into holidays, but generally speaking, about 3 months to put together a transaction. So if you work out the timing, if we start like right away today, the goal would be to close on or about December 1st. That would be the first date that would be legally okay to do a refunding. If interest rates were to rise, you do not have to do a refunding right at that call date. We could cancel it, we could defer it, whatever. But right now it looks very feasible. I was looking at savings in the 800,000 to $1 million kind of a range. I mean, we're talking really big savings. There's a lot of talk right now that because of inflationary pressure, interest rates are going up. They did go up a little bit, I guess, last week, maybe 5 basis points on municipal bonds. But do not be concerned. Interest rates go up, interest rates go down. And I used very conservative rates in the numbers I prepared. My rates are about 30 basis points, 0.30% higher than the current market. Even if we were doing it today, I'm that much above the market. The only other thing I can tell you is I do have a competitive sale next Tuesday for the city of St. Charles. They have a AA rating, same as yours, Geo bonds. They're outstanding longer, but I should have a really good indication from what kind of rates they get to be able to tell you what your rates are going to look like. And other than that, the resolution that's in front of you, basically it is to engage bond counsel and to engage my services to go ahead and proceed with the refunding. As I mentioned at the work session, our fees are contingent on completion of the transaction. So if interest rates go up and you were to cancel or defer the transaction, you wouldn't have any obligation to myself or bond counsel. If we get a bond rating, that would be the one cost that would be out of pocket if you decided not to proceed with the refunding. And it wouldn't be the whole cost. At least the last time I checked, it's 70% of the cost if you get a bond rating and don't proceed with the transaction. But that's highly unlikely. I really feel confident that rates are not going to go so high in the near future that this would not be feasible.
Would anyone like to make a motion?
I would. Chairman, I move that we approve resolution 2021-209, a resolution authorizing the offering for sale of general obligation refunding bonds.
Second.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions from Chairman,
I do, and it-
Councilmember Waldman?
thank you. I do, and it really isn't, a question of what you're doing, Joy, but, I was reading earlier this week on some of my financial little page sites that I go to, that right now, investors are looking at these bond options for investments, that's where they're going. So, you said you'll know more after you deal with St. Charles. Am I comfortable in reading that yes, these are where investors are going at this point in time with these bond issues? And, as you're indicating, it's favorable in our case.
Well, you saw the graph that was passed out last week. We're at historically low levels.
Mhm.
And there hasn't been a very large supply of municipal bonds. So municipal bonds are actually on a historical basis. The rates are lower than United States Treasury bonds are on a historical basis. So whether or not those ratios continue, I don't know, but the issue will be very desirable.
Thank you very
And
much.
it's all of that.
Thank you very much. And absolutely, it is all of that. Hallelujah.
Are there any other questions or comments?
I just, I was listening to a report today that the St. Louis Fed chair was talking about the fact that by the spring, they felt that they might be ready to do quantitative easing and that maybe that's when we're going to start to see a rise in rates. I don't know why they're waiting till the spring. There's a lot of money in the economy right now, but having said that, that'll bode well for us. And if they're not going to start tailing back and curtailing on their
The Fed has said they didn't plan on increasing interest rates until 2023. That was the latest I heard. And if the COVID trend keeps on going the way it is, then they're not going to raise rates for even longer. And who knows what that'll do to the economy.
yeah,
So
who knows? At some point, the inflation is going to spiral out of control.
that's true. Not though if COVID continues.
If there's no more questions, City Clerk, could you call for the vote?
Councilmember Carl,
Yes.
Councilmember Waldman.
Yes.
Councilmember Springer,
Yes.
Chairman Weil,
Yes,
motion passed.
thank you. And thank you to Joy for always having our backs.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joy.
Next item, please.
Item number 7, resolution number 2021-210, a resolution authorizing a municipal park grant application.
Okay,
Mayor, we have Beverly Tucker Knight. I'm going to be bringing her on as panelist, our Park and Recs Director, who's going to talk a little bit about this, this grant application. Hopefully. There she is. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. It's great to see you all. I apologize for not being there in person. I apologize also because I missed the introduction as we're switching from panelists to the live feed. So Barb, I'm not sure where you left off.
I have pretty much kicked the entire thing over to you, Bev.
Okay, all right. Well, this evening, we have before you a resolution for the city to apply for a municipal park grant for completing some of the park master plan items at Villa Park. And I have in the report, I have a little bit of a background on the municipal grant because not everyone is familiar with them, and the city has not applied for municipal grant for many years. So this is exciting for us. But basically, the municipal grants are a tax that's approved by the residents of the St. Louis region. Twice now, they've been reconfirmed that this is something that the residents in the region feel very strongly about: parks and open space and trails. And the money that's collected, 50% of it goes to Great Rivers Greenway. So that's what funds our beautiful Greenway network, and will also fund the portion of the Greenway that's coming through Olivet. And then another percentage of about 30% is given to St. Louis County Parks to run their parks and recreation programs in the unincorporated areas of the counties. And then the final 20% is managed by the Municipal Park Grant Commission, and that is allocated to the 90 municipalities in the city. And there's a board of Parks and Recreation directors that do initial previews of it. The staff from the Municipal League coach cities with their applications, and then the final grants are authorized by the commission itself. So we've selected Villa Park for numerous reasons, primarily because there aren't other large grants going on in Villa Park, which makes it a much simpler process. So we did look at Indian Meadows and we looked at Warson, but both of those parks right now have other grant funding, some federal dollars coming in, which can make it a little bit harder to manage and to do the billing for that. And also the size of the grant we're looking for and the time in which the projects need to be completed in order to fit the grant guidelines. It really felt that Villa is our best candidate for this. So tonight's resolution would authorize us turning in an application for the coming round of grant funding. And I'd be happy to answer any other questions that you might have. Are there any questions?
Well, go ahead. Can I just ask a question just for clarity? We're asking for the 370,000. That does not mean that we will get 370,000. We could get less, correct?
We could. We could also not get approved at all. It really depends on how many cities submit their applications. It depends on, do we do a good job in our grant application itself, which I'm confident that we will do a good job with it. But there may be other cities that generate higher points based on the funding criteria. So for example, if a city hasn't had a grant for a while, or if their need is perceived as greater, or if sometimes you can get a higher points if you're doing a 100% ADA accessible project, not just accessible, but like an incredible parallel play, which is very difficult to do. So there are different criteria that could nudge another city above or below us. Oftentimes, full disclosure, I sit on this review board with some other Parks and Recreation directors. So I've watched the process for the last couple of years. I, of course, recuse myself from the discussion of this grant, but what can happen is you can have maybe 20 cities that are 100% eligible and have done an excellent job, but there just isn't enough money as they start going down the ranking. But I am confident that we will do well because it's been so long since we've had a grant. So fingers crossed.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Pro
Thank
Tem.
you. Would anyone like to make a motion?
Chairman, I move that we approve Resolution 2021-210, authorizing the municipal park grant application for Villa Park improvements.
Second.
Are there any questions or concerns or questions for Beverly Tucker Knight? Okay, then let's call City Clerk, if you could call for the vote.
Councilmember Carl,
Yes.
Councilmember Waldman,
Yes,
Councilmember Springer,
Yes.
Chairman Weil,
Yes.
motion passed.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
it's good to see you. Take care.
Thank you.
City Clerk, next item, please.
Item 8, Community Development Block Grant Funds, CDBG fiscal year 2022.
And I believe the city manager was going to. tee
I
it
was
up.
just gonna say, yeah, we have
Tee it
Bruce McGregor with the Director of Public Works is here to talk about the application for the upcoming Community Development Block Grant.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. It's that time of year again. We get to talk about our annual application for Community Development Block Grant Funds. I think it'd be good to start, maybe if you could open up the graphic that has the project location, and we can sort of just talk about the different parts at play here, so we don't have any confusion. Okay, first of all, on the top of the page, the section that's highlighted in sort of a light tan color, that is the low moderate income area in Olivet. Just for reference, it's determined by this census surveys. And we are working in that area adjacent to in the section outlined in the square. The interesting part of it is that the segment in green that's highlighted private development sidewalk, that is a connector that we've been looking for to get a pedestrian access between Price Road and Hilltop for years, looking for a way to do this. And we've been working with the Opus Development Group to include that with their project. So they are going to be working from the Price Road intersection, the east side of the Price Road intersection, all the way over to the west side of the Hilltop intersection. So we'll have a connector on the south side of Alice. What the city is looking to do is utilize our community development block grant funds to get a connection. It'll be a mid-block crossing. And that's where that little plus sign is. And we wanted to continue to use additional funds as available through our grant and our ongoing capital funds and so on to reconstruct the sidewalk up to Chisholm with a new compliant sidewalk. The sidewalk that's existing is 4 feet in most areas. It does have offsets. The cross slope isn't sufficient. So it really doesn't meet current ADA guidelines. Our grant amount that we're eligible for is $20,000, and that's really not quite enough to cover this whole project. So the additional funding, and again, this is just our pencil estimate. We're directing in the application that the city will use our funds to complete the project, whatever is necessary in that area. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I don't know if we should go into the public hearing part first, and then after that, I could answer questions. If that sounds amicable to everybody.
I consider your presentation part of the public hearing, so we can do whatever the
Okay.
pro tem desires.
So we don't have to officially close then.
You really don't.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So let's start with, are there any questions from the public? And let's see, can we see who's on the attendees? Barb, who are the attendees? Okay, are there any questions from them? I don't think so. So we'll begin with the council before we get dizzy.
Hold on. I'm
Yeah.
Are you
getting
trying
it.
to get Jim in there?
I'm trying to get the crowd.
Okay.
Turn it over the crowd.
Jim, there you go, Jim.
Yay!
All right. All right.
Okay,
Now
Now-
we need you to grab a
now that
jacket
you're
out of the
front and
closet.
center, Mr. Persons, let's continue. Are there any comments or questions from any of the council members? Do you have one?
I know I could be asking a question that is typical.
Mhm.
We can't really, but what do you think would be the total cost of the reconstruction of the sidewalk that's on the other side of the street that you say we'll be using our own funds to consider?
Okay, you have to sort of help me a little bit here. Where are we talking about?
You said we'd be using our own funds.
See the segment in orange? So there's an estimate that's included in the packet somewhere, unless I did have trouble assembling the PDF last week. And it's possible,
okay,
no, there's
all right,
another,
okay,
there's
Yeah.
an Excel sheet.
No,
Where
yeah.
I used some rough numbers based on previous bid packages. There we go.
All right, and that answered my question I asked over
Okay.
the weekend with regard to the differential, that 5,700 something
Right.
bucks. Okay, all right.
Yeah, I
that's
mean, we
connected
get
to
a
that.
unit as our allocation and it's hard to find a perfect project. Sometimes they work out pretty closely. Sometimes they don't.
And the CDBG, just so the council knows, CDBG grants, that we can use what they call the forced labor, so we can use our own labor as a match.
It's
We-
a
have we
terrible
used-
expression.
Have
We
we
need to
used all-
rename it.
Have we used all of our BG money from the past to
Good.
where we're not encumbering it to the next year?
We have several years of funds that we're going to use as on the 1190 and 1250 projects.
Okay.
And those are virtually ready to go. So the 1190 Dealman, we have 2 years worth of funding, and 1250, we have 1 year approved and I think 1 year pending on those two parcels. And so that's a total of $40,000 for each parcel.
And that was, those were accumulated with the idea of doing that as one project to mobilize once.
Right.
Because we have in the past had times when we got behind in some of the CDBG because projects, but this was part of the plan.
I think our 2018 funds, we came in a little bit under budget and we ended up reutilizing the surplus funds for the water fountain. So as long as it meets the intent of the program, they're happy to work with you. So if you're removing an ADA impediment, they're happy to work with you to utilize all the funds. Yeah, I have a cheat sheet in my drive with all the years and the codes and everything to keep track of everything because it gets confusing.
I do have one question before we call for the motion. We should have done that first, sorry. Because we're going to be doing this Opus development over off of Alice,
Mhm.
which would come first? I mean.
The Opus
timeline.
development will come first.
They'll be,
Yeah,
come
I can,
first, finish there
Yeah.
before we would do our construction
and
on
then we'll do
Alice.
our side.
Okay.
And
that-
we
that falls in
may,
the timeline of the money constraints?
I beg your pardon?
Are there constraints with the money, like if we're late in using it, or do we have to? use it
No, I mean, they'll give us a stern warning to use it, but we've always made it happen in
Okay.
time.
So the
I think you
time-
get 3 years or
Oh,
something.
okay. That's what I'm
I,
looking for.
one of the things we might consider is accumulating a couple years to do a little bit more.
Mhm.
Last year during the budget preparation process, we made a map and sort of identified non-vehicular mobility areas, pedestrian, bike, trail, whatever. And, we certainly had the Northeast Quadrant pegged to somewhere where we really want to improve connectivity along with other areas. So, we might determine that, hey, we want to do that background research to make sure everything's going to work well and ask for another grant, to couple with this one for a little more funding.
Great. Would anyone like to make a motion? Please, somebody make a motion?
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to authorize the 2022 Community Development Block Grant Fund application to construct the mid-block ADA curb ramp and sidewalk in the 1100 block of Hilltop Avenue, which is in the LMI area of Olivet.
Do we need that motion to say not to exceed a certain amount of money? Or
It's a
that's not
grant,
necessary?
so it's in a
Okay.
grant, not an agreement, so.
Okay. Very good. If there's no more discussion, City Clerk, if you could call for the vote?
Councilmember Carl,
Yes.
Councilmember Waldman,
Yes,
Councilmember Springer,
Yes.
Chairman Weil.
Yes.
Motion passed.
And just in case anybody noticed too, on the application, it said it was due in May. That's been reworked. It's due the end of this month. So not to worry if you noticed that.
And that's because of the pandemic?
Yeah,
Okay.
everything's been delayed.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. McGregor.
Welcome.
We'll move on to item number 9.
Item number 9, consideration of proposal for new police department sidearms.
Okay, we should have Chief Dave Wolf coming on now to present to you this request for the sidearms. This was one of the capital improvement items in the most recently approved budget.
Good evening, council. As stated, my name is David Wolf. I am the Chief of Police for the Police Department. And before you tonight is a consideration to consider a proposal to purchase new equipment that we are on schedule for. We did put out a request for proposal. We did receive 2 responses for that. I am suggesting that we go with the proposal from GT Distributors. And just as a side note, we did, for some preliminary budgeting purposes, we did budget $19,000 for this. However, obviously much lower than that, came in significantly under budget, which is great. So if there are any questions to this, I would be happy to answer them.
Madam Pro Chair, if I could, Chief, I appreciate you indicating what we had budgeted in that, because that was going to be a question of mine. I have no problem supporting this, but I do want to ask a question about ammunition. I think I had asked this way back when, and we were kind of doing good, but you know, the news lately has been reporting a shortage with regard to ammunition. Could you know, we're getting new guns, I don't know if bullets change with new guns. I'm not a gun owner, so I really don't know. So with these new guns we're getting, does that mean a different bullet? And will our police be armed with sufficient tools that they need to, if God forbid they need?
Good question, and it does. We currently carry a sidearm that's a different caliber than what we are looking to purchase. However, for a variety of reasons, we are looking to switch. The ammunition shortage is certainly a topic of conversation and is certainly a consideration. However, both of these distributors have indicated that they do have significant supply to distribute to their customers. Many times what these distributors will do is they will hold back a supply of their ammunition so that when departments or customers do make a significant purchase, they do have the supply to fill that order. So while it is a consideration, it's not as if we are not going to be equipped with the ammunition that we need.
If I could just follow up and educate me. So, because I don't know much about guns and I don't know much about bullets, would the
Sure.
bullets in these new guns be different than the bullets you guys are using and gals are using now in the guns you have?
So they are. So the sidearms that we currently carry now use a 40 caliber bullet. However, the guns that we are going to be purchasing use a 9mm bullet. So it's a little bit smaller bullet, but because of that, in my opinion, there's some advantages to that. They are less expensive in the long run. They also are a little gentler on the kickback when officers do have to fire their weapon. So there are some advantages to switching the ammunition.
Thank you you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, for allowing me that education on a difficult topic.
Are there any other questions at this time for the chief? Would someone like to make a motion?
Madam Mayor, I make a motion, or Madam Chairman, I make a motion to approve the purchase of 25 Glock MOS G45 9mm sidearms and related accessories from GT Distributors not to exceed $9,775.23.
Second.
City clerk, please call for the vote.
Councilmember Carl,
Yes.
Councilmember Waldman.
Yes,
Councilmember Springer,
Yes.
Chairman Weil,
Yes.
motion passed.
Thank
Item
you very much.
please. Thank you, chief.
thank you, Chief.
Item number 10 is hearing from citizens, part 2.
Would anyone like to speak? Okay, thank you. Item number 11, please.
Review and approval of minutes.
I did not review them, so I can't comment.
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the council minutes from July 27th, 2021, and the council minutes from workshop on August 3rd, 2021.
Call for the vote, please.
Councilmember Carl,
Yes.
Councilmember Waldman,
Yes,
Councilmember Springer,
Yes.
Chairman Weil,
Yes.
motion passed.
Item number 12.
City Attorney's report.
I wanted to inform the council of a couple of cases that have come down recently. One involves the Sunshine Law. The Supreme Court has declared that cities cannot charge attorney's fees for review of Sunshine Law requests. Also, in responding to Sunshine Law requests, we have to provide a specific date for delivery rather than simply put somebody off for 3 or 4 weeks or indefinitely. And we also have to provide a specific explanation if there is any redaction from what we are providing them. For instance, if there's attorney-client privileged discussion that is blacked out on the document that is provided, we have to explain why we're doing that. This all results from a case brought by a pro se individual who successfully sued a city north of Kansas City, I believe it was, and was awarded something like $170,000 in fees. So it was a significant accomplishment for this gentleman, and it really gave the Supreme Court reason to really tighten up the rules that pertain to the Sunshine Law. So we need to be aware of that going forward. Also, there's an interesting code enforcement case involving the city of Florissant. The city of Florissant had an ordinance requiring, and I only read the synopsis of this case. I have not read the case itself. I have not read the ordinance. So if I am misstating something slightly, please give me some room. Anyway, this ordinance requires the owners of rental properties to get a license as a condition of the rental. And as a condition of the license, the property must be maintained in a crime-free condition. That is a little bit vague. I'm sure it was much more, not much more, I'm sure it was more specific than that. But realtors challenged the ordinance's constitutionality for vagueness, saying, you can't enforce this because it doesn't really give us any guidance as to what we need to do. And the court rejected that and upheld the ordinance. So it's a valid ordinance. I thought I would send it to Carlos to get his input, and perhaps we'll be seeing that down the road.
Mr. Martin, so the Florissant ordinance, the courts determined is valid?
Yes,
How interesting.
it is interesting. I'm looking forward to reading the case. I just haven't gotten
Yeah.
around to it yet.
Okay,
Also, our government speech case, state has requested and has been granted an additional extension. Now it's
I'm
2
shocked.
weeks, I believe. So it's
I'm shocked.
2 weeks from Thursday, it's supposed to be due. Other than that, I believe there's a need for a closed session and for attorney-client communications and for personnel under 610-021.1 and .3. And I'd ask for a motion to that
So
effect.
moved.
I'll second.
Call for vote, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. We're back from closed session. I'd like to report that there no decisions were made. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Move. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.